Diff'rent Strokes, 1978 to 1986, was more than just a sitcom. It was a cultural phenomenon that captured hearts with its humor, warmth, and powerful messages about family and acceptance. While the show brought smiles to viewers around the world, many of its beloved cast members faced heartbreaking struggles off-screen. From battles with addiction and legal troubles to untimely and tragic deaths, the real-life journeys of these actors were far more complex than their on-screen personas. In this video, we pay tribute to the stars of Diff'rent Strokes who have sadly passed away, remembering their talent, their legacy, and the personal hardships they endured behind the scenes. Conrad Bane was born on February 4, 1923, and took on the role of Philip Drummond in 1978 at the age of 55, bringing to life the benevolent and progressive father who adopted two boys of a different race. His character, always composed and understanding, was a symbol of empathy and moral decency, anchoring the show with calm wisdom and patience. While Bane gained recognition for Diff'rent Strokes, his earlier work in Maude had already placed him in the public eye, though he often lamented being typecast as the nice guy, a fate that he privately considered a curse as it limited his opportunities for more complex and varied roles. Off-screen, Bane struggled in silence through a strained marriage with Monica Sloan. Though they remained together until her death, their relationship was marred by emotional distance and unspoken resentment, and their only son, Mark, became estranged after a bitter fallout over finances. The family's veneer of stability concealed years of neglect and silence. In his final decades, Bane reportedly battled depression and recurring regret over the direction of his career and the fame that never came on his own terms. He also endured years of survivor's guilt, watching his younger co-stars succumb to early deaths while he lived on in quiet solitude. He passed away on January 14, 2013, at the age of 89 due to complications following a stroke. Dana Plato was born on November 7, 1964, and joined Diff'rent Strokes in 1978 as Kimberly Drummond at age 14, portraying the sweet, upper-class daughter whose warmth offered a counterbalance to the show's broader comedic elements. Kimberly's character was graceful and supportive, but the girl who played her lived a life in stark contrast. Plato's rise to fame as a teen idol was brief and turbulent. After being written off the show due to pregnancy, she struggled to find serious acting work and eventually descended into a world of exploitation films and B-movie obscurity. Her personal life was even more devastating. She married guitarist Lanny Lambert in 1984, and they had one son, Tyler, but their relationship quickly dissolved into divorce and custody battles. After losing custody of her son and facing mounting financial problems, Dana turned to drugs and alcohol, attempting multiple comebacks that were consistently sabotaged by her addictions. She was arrested for robbing a video store and later appeared on The Howard Stern Show days before her death, sounding eerily defeated. Despite her public pleas for understanding, she remained a tabloid cautionary tale. Dana Plato died on May 8, 1999, at the age of 34 from a drug overdose that was ruled a suicide, her body found in a parked RV in Oklahoma, a grim epilogue to a life consumed by loss and rejection. Gary Coleman was born on February 8, 1968, and began his role as Arnold Jackson in 1978 when he was just 10 years old, instantly becoming a cultural icon through his charm and the unforgettable catchphrase, "What you talkin' 'bout, Willis?" Arnold was cheeky, sharp, and full of heart, often acting as the emotional core of the show. Behind the laughter, however, Coleman's real life was deeply tragic. His childhood stardom masked the physical torment of congenital kidney disease and lifelong growth problems, which kept him permanently childlike in stature despite the emotional demands of fame. Gary's parents, who adopted him, later became embroiled in legal battles with him over his earnings, leading to a bitter court case that left him emotionally shattered and financially devastated. His brief and volatile marriage to Shannon Price was fraught with allegations of abuse and manipulation, and the couple divorced within a year. He had no children and often spoke about feeling utterly alone. Financial ruin, constant health crises, and public humiliation through reality TV appearances turned his adult life into a spectacle of pity. Perhaps most tragic was how his legacy became reduced to a punchline, with few truly grasping the depth of his suffering. Gary Coleman died on May 28, 2010, at the age of 42 from an intracranial hemorrhage after a fall in his Utah home. Dixie Carter was born on May 25, 1939, and took on the role of Maggie McKinney in 1984 at the age of 45, breathing life into Philip Drummond's second wife with elegance and southern wit. Maggie was confident, intelligent, and modern, a breath of fresh air that redefined the family dynamic in the show's later seasons. Though her portrayal was brief, it became an important transitional moment in the series. Carter's career was diverse and marked by both critical acclaim and personal compromise. Best known for her work on Designing Women, she often battled typecasting and professional frustration, especially after producers limited her input on political content that conflicted with her own conservative views. Her personal life was fraught with complexity. After 2 failed marriages, she married actor Hal Holbrook, with whom she remained until her death, though their marriage was strained by their clashing beliefs and the pressures of maintaining dual acting careers. She had 2 daughters from her second marriage but struggled to maintain a stable maternal role due to her work commitments. Carter's later years were marred by health issues and private battles with body image and self-worth, remnants of her early beauty pageant days. Dixie Carter died on April 10, 2010, at the age of 70 from complications related to endometrial cancer. Charlotte Rae was born on April 22, 1926, and began playing Edna Garrett, the warm-hearted housekeeper, in 1978 at the age of 52, a role that would spin off into the beloved series The Facts of Life. Mrs. Garrett was nurturing, full of quirky wisdom, and often functioned as the show's moral compass. Charlotte Rae's career was one of endurance, slowly building from theater work and bit parts into TV stardom in middle age, though she remained forever typecast as the gentle matron. Behind her composed public persona was a woman whose personal life was marked by heartbreak. Her marriage to composer John Strauss ended when he came out as bisexual, shattering the foundation of their home and leaving Rae emotionally adrift. They had 2 sons, one of whom, Andy, was born with autism and epilepsy, requiring lifelong care. Rae poured herself into advocacy but rarely found solace in the spotlight. She was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer in her later years and fought 2 separate cancer battles. Despite the reverence surrounding her legacy, Rae reportedly confided in close friends about her lifelong sense of invisibility in Hollywood, a place that prized youth and beauty over resilience. She died on August 5, 2018, at the age of 92 from complications related to bone cancer, having weathered both personal and professional tempests with quiet dignity. Nedra Boss was born on June 18, 1908, and portrayed Adelaide Brubaker in Diff'rent starting in 1980, when she was 72 years old. Adelaide, the spirited housekeeper, brought sass and humor to the household, often clashing with Mr. Drummond in witty banter while nurturing Arnold and Willis like a grandmother. Her petite stature and bold personality made her unforgettable. Boss' acting career had a surprisingly late bloom, only gaining national attention in her late 60s. She spent years doing bit parts and voice work while living modestly, often sleeping in cramped apartments and working as a house cleaner between roles. Before Diff'rent, she appeared in minor television spots that went mostly unnoticed, despite her talent. Her personal life was marked by pain. She married singer and bandleader Lyndon Voles in 1944, but their relationship was troubled by his alcoholism. They had 1 daughter, Linda, who became estranged from her mother in the 1970s after years of unresolved emotional rifts. Nedra never remarried, and the distance from her daughter haunted her deeply. She spent many holidays alone and rarely spoke of her family in interviews. Among the greatest tragedies in her life was a stroke in the mid-1980s that left her with partial paralysis, forcing her into a reclusive lifestyle. She died on January 20, 2003, at the age of 94 from natural causes. Ann Mobley was born on February 17, 1937, and began portraying Maggie McKinney Drummond in 1980, at the age of 43. Maggie was introduced as a loving and patient maternal figure who brought compassion into the Drummond household, gracefully stepping into the role of Arnold and Willis's stepmother. Her character exuded warmth and resilience. In real life, Mobley was crowned Miss America in 1959 and launched a film career soon after, but she was often typecast in decorative roles, her potential rarely fully realized. Despite appearing in various films and television shows, she faced persistent career frustration, overshadowed by her beauty queen past. Her marriage to actor Gary Collins in 1967 seemed idyllic from the outside, but behind closed doors, their relationship was strained by infidelities and financial stress. The couple had one daughter, Mary Clancy Collins, but Mobley often felt isolated, juggling public appearances and private disappointment. She battled Crohn's disease for years, undergoing multiple surgeries that left her physically weakened and emotionally drained. She also struggled with depression and anxiety, which she kept hidden from the public. In the late 2000s, she was diagnosed with breast cancer, which eventually metastasized. She passed away on December 9, 2014, at the age of 77 from breast cancer. McLean Stevenson was born on November 14, 1927 and took on the role of Larry Alder in 1979 at the age of 52, bringing warmth and humor to the screen with a character that masked deep emotional layers behind a friendly facade. Larry was a charming, jovial figure, but beneath the surface, he often served as the show's quiet moral compass, offering support while struggling with his own regrets. Stevenson had previously achieved fame as Lieutenant Colonel Henry Blake in MASH*, but after leaving the show prematurely in pursuit of leading roles, his career faltered dramatically. Plagued by failed pilots and a reputation for making the wrong career moves, Stevenson watched his star dim just as others rose. His personal life was a reflection of his career's instability. He married twice, first to Polly Ann Gordon, with whom he had a daughter, and later to Ginny Fosdick, with whom he had a son. Both marriages were marred by long periods of separation and emotional detachment. He struggled with depression following his career decline, and the collapse of his second marriage left him isolated. One of the deepest wounds of his later years was his estrangement from his daughter, who reportedly refused to speak to him for over a decade. Additionally, Stevenson battled alcohol dependency in silence, masking it with forced smiles during interviews. He died on February 15, 1996 at the age of 68 from a sudden heart attack. Ron Fineberg was born on October 10, 1932 and began portraying Detective Morrison in 1979 at the age of 47, a surprisingly young age for the authoritative and hardened role he took on. Morrison was firm, by the book, and unwavering, a no-nonsense cop who always sought truth in a world filled with deceit. Fineberg's tall, intimidating frame and gravelly voice made him a natural for the role, though behind the camera, his career was riddled with rejection. Though he found steady work as a voice actor in animated shows like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and Batman, the animated series, he never achieved the fame he craved, often feeling overlooked and underappreciated. His love life was a reflection of his internal battles. He never married but had a long-term relationship with a dancer named Clara, who tragically died in a car accident in 1986. The loss shattered him, and he reportedly never recovered, retreating from the public eye and becoming a recluse. Ron had no children, though he often spoke of adopting, a dream he abandoned after Clara's death. In his final years, he suffered from chronic back pain due to an old-stage accident and developed severe agoraphobia, rarely leaving his home. His phone stopped ringing, and roles dried up. He died alone on January 29, 2005 from natural causes at the age of 72. Gordon Jump was born on April 1, 1932 and stepped into the controversial and unforgettable role of Mr. Horton in 1983 at the age of 51, portraying a character whose actions shocked audiences and confronted real-world issues head-on. Mr. Horton, a seemingly kind bicycle shop owner, appeared in one of the most haunting episodes of Diff'rent Strokes, challenging the lighthearted tone of the show and leaving an indelible mark on viewers. Though Jump was best known for his comedic role as Arthur Carlson in WKRP in Cincinnati, taking on Mr. Horton marked a risky departure that led to public misunderstanding and typecasting. Jump married twice, first to Betty Jump, with whom he had 5 children, though the marriage ended in a quiet, prolonged divorce marked by emotional distance. His second marriage, to Annie Gaines, brought little solace, as she reportedly struggled with mental illness, leading to long periods of separation and conflict. Despite being a father of 5, Gordon Jump admitted later in life that he often felt like a stranger to his children, many of whom resented his long absences and feared the backlash from his disturbing role. He suffered from chronic pulmonary issues in his later years, and depression followed him closely after his second marriage dissolved. He passed away on September 22, 2003 at the age of 71 from pulmonary fibrosis. Dabney Coleman was born on January 3, 1932 and began his role as Fred Tanner in 1979 at the age of 47, lending his signature blend of cynicism and dry wit to the character. Fred Tanner was sarcastic, authoritative, and often at odds with the more naive characters on the show, a role Coleman played with unnerving ease. Though he achieved considerable success with acclaimed roles in films like 9 to 5 and Tootsie, Coleman's career often painted him as a typecast villain or a grumpy bureaucrat, a label he resented deeply. He married and divorced twice, first to Courtney Harrell, with whom he had 4 children, and then to actress Jean Hale. Both marriages ended in heartbreak, driven by his workaholic tendencies and emotional unavailability. Though he was close to one of his daughters, Megan, the rest of his children reportedly distanced themselves from him due to his abrasive temperament. Coleman's struggles included a long battle with social anxiety, which he masked through bravado and heavy drinking. After a late-life diagnosis of a degenerative neurological disease, his career ground to a halt. One of his most haunting regrets was never reconciling with his son Quincy, who had publicly criticized his father's emotional coldness. He passed away on May 16, 2024 at the age of 92 from natural causes. Whitman Mayo was born on November 15, 1930 and took on the role of Jethro Simpson in 1979 at the age of 49, bringing an affable, down-to-earth energy to the show that quickly endeared him to fans. Jethro was a quirky, gentle character whose comic timing masked layers of wisdom, often offering surprisingly profound insights. Mayo found fame earlier as Grady in Sanford and Son, but after that show's end, his career waned. Offers became sporadic, and he turned to teaching drama to stay afloat. He married his longtime partner Gail Mayo, and they had 3 children, including a son named Ron, but their marriage endured many fractures, particularly after financial stress mounted due to Mayo's dwindling work. Their household was described by friends as warm but chaotic, marked by loud arguments and long silences. He suffered from hypertension for years and eventually developed diabetes, which worsened with time. His greatest sorrow came when his eldest daughter passed away in the early 1990s due to complications from lupus, a tragedy that reportedly left him inconsolable for months. Another blow came when the IRS seized one of his properties due to unpaid taxes. Mayo spent his last years in Atlanta, mentoring young actors but mostly living in obscurity. He died on May 22, 2001 from a heart attack at the age of 70. Jack Riley, born on December 30, 1935, took on the role of Charles Sutton in Diff'rent Strokes beginning in 1978, when he was 43 years old. Charles was a wry, sardonic character, often appearing as the comic cynic amid the optimism of the main cast. Riley's dry humor became a fan favorite, but in stark contrast, his life was one of prolonged struggle and unresolved grief. Known for voicing Stu Pickles in Rugrats and his recurring role on The Bob Newhart Show, Riley's career was dotted with highs and lows, many of which were affected by his debilitating battles with anxiety and alcoholism. Despite a successful run in comedy, he often felt overlooked and underappreciated, typecast and boxed in by producers who failed to see his range. He married Ginger Lawrence in the 1970s, but their union was tempestuous. They had no children, and Ginger filed for divorce twice before ultimately staying, more as a caretaker than a partner during his decline. His deep-seated fear of abandonment, rooted in a childhood marked by emotional neglect, made him cling to toxic relationships. He suffered a severe mental breakdown in the early 90s and spent time in psychiatric care. Toward the end of his life, Riley became reclusive, shunning industry events and refusing to do interviews. He died on August 19, 2016, at the age of 80 from pneumonia. Dodie Goodman, born on October 28, 1914, joined Diff'rent Strokes in 1981 as Aunt Sophia Drummond at the age of 67. Sophia was an eccentric whirlwind of energy and mischief, always entering scenes with a punchline or a wild story, adding levity to tense family moments. In contrast, Goodman's real life was marred by professional frustration and deep loneliness. Known for her offbeat voice and comedic timing, Dodie rose to brief fame on The Tonight Show in the 1950s, but her career was repeatedly sabotaged by her reputation for being difficult and unreliable, often misunderstood rather than malicious. She never married and had no children, lamenting in later years that her life had been filled with applause, but not with love. Estranged from her conservative family, she spent holidays alone in a rent-controlled apartment in Los Angeles. Her eccentricities became more pronounced as she aged, leading to long periods of isolation and eccentric behavior that distanced her even further from industry friends. After a fire destroyed much of her apartment in the 1990s, she lived out her final years in a care facility, mentally disoriented and often reliving her scenes aloud to herself. She died on June 22, 2008, at the age of 93 from natural causes, her passing mostly unnoticed by the media. Robert Rockwell was born on October 15, 1920, and began playing Tom Bishop in Diff'rent Strokes in 1979, at the age of 59. Tom was a dependable and kind presence in the series, offering emotional stability during the more chaotic family dynamics. His quiet strength mirrored the persona he crafted throughout his career. Best remembered as the handsome Mr. Boynton from Our Miss Brooks, Rockwell was typecast early and struggled to break into more complex roles, despite his background in Shakespearean theater. After the 1950s, his career dwindled into obscurity, with years spent auditioning for roles that never came. He married Elizabeth Weiss in the 1940s, and they had 4 children, but tragedy struck when their eldest son, Michael, died in a car crash in 1975. The family never fully recovered from the loss. His wife fell into depression, and Rockwell, unable to save his marriage, began sleeping in a separate room. They never divorced, but their relationship became cold and distant. One of his darkest periods was in the early 80s when he was diagnosed with early-stage Parkinson's. He kept it secret to avoid losing roles, but the tremors worsened, leading to anxiety and an eventual retreat from the spotlight. He died on January 25, 2003, at the age of 82 from natural causes, having long been forgotten by the industry he once adored. Who is your favorite character in Diff'rent Strokes? How do you feel knowing that the actors have passed away? Feel free to leave your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this content, don't forget to like, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell so you don't miss future videos. Thank you so much.